In a quiet village nestled between towering mountains, there lived a man named Kenji. Kenji wasn't just any man. He was a swordsman, but not the kind you see in legends. He didn't wear flashy armor, and he never boasted about his skills. To the villagers, he was simply a humble man who lived in a small wooden house, tending to his garden and practicing his swordsmanship in solitude. Each morning, Kenji would wake before sunrise, meditate by the river, and then begin his day with quiet discipline. The villagers admired him, not because he claimed to be great, but because he carried himself with a rare kind of peace. But then, one day, a young warrior named Daiki arrived in the village. Daiki was the opposite of Kenji, loud, proud, and eager to prove himself. He carried his sword on his hip, always ready for a challenge. He had traveled far and wide, defeating many opponents, and he had one goal: to be recognized as the greatest swordsman of all. The moment he arrived, he gathered the villagers and made an announcement. "I have bested warriors across the land. I am undefeated. Is there no one here who dares to test my strength?" The villagers murmured among themselves. They had no interest in meaningless battles. But then, one voice spoke. "If you seek a true test," an old man said, "there is one among us you should meet." Daiki's eyes gleamed. "Who?" "Kenji," the old man said. "He is the finest swordsman in these mountains." Daiki smirked. "Where can I find him?" The villagers pointed toward a small wooden house on the outskirts of the village. Without hesitation, Daiki marched there, eager to prove himself. When Daiki arrived, he found Kenji doing something unexpected. He wasn't training. He wasn't sharpening his blade. He wasn't even carrying a sword. He was sweeping leaves from his doorstep. Daiki frowned. "Are you Kenji, the so-called master swordsman?" Kenji paused, looked up, and gave a small nod. "I challenge you to a duel," Daiki declared. "Show me what you've got." Kenji continued sweeping. "A duel?" he asked calmly. Daiki scoffed. "Are you afraid, or are you past your prime?" Kenji looked at him and smiled. "Tell me, young man, why do you seek this fight?" "To prove that I am the best," Daiki said proudly. Kenji nodded thoughtfully. "And after you prove it, what then?" Daiki hesitated. No one had ever asked him that before. Kenji continued. "Will you be at peace? Will you stop fighting once people recognize you?" Daiki didn't have an answer. He had spent his entire life chasing victory after victory, yet he never felt satisfied. Kenji set his broom aside. He walked to a nearby tree and picked up a single fallen leaf. Holding it between his fingers, he said, "There are two kinds of warriors in this world. One fights to prove himself. The other fights only when necessary. Do you know which one is stronger?" Daiki remained silent. Kenji let the leaf go, watching it float to the ground. The strongest warrior does not seek battles. The river does not shout as it flows. The wind does not boast as it moves the trees. Strength does not need to announce itself. Daiki clenched his fists. He had expected a battle. Instead, he had received a lesson. Kenji picked up his broom and resumed sweeping, as if nothing had happened. Daiki stood there, gripping his sword. For the first time in his life, he felt powerless. Not because he had been defeated, but because he had just realized how little he truly understood. And that realization changed him forever. Daiki didn't challenge Kenji again. Instead, he stayed in the village. At first, he trained harder than ever, believing that if he mastered his swordsmanship, he would finally understand Kenji's wisdom. But no matter how strong he became, he still felt something missing. One evening, he found Kenji by the river, calmly skipping stones across the water. Daiki approached and sat beside him. "Master Kenji," he said, "I have trained for years, yet I still feel restless. How do I find the peace that you have?" Kenji smiled. "Put down your sword." Daiki hesitated. "Put it down?" Kenji nodded. "For 1 month, do not touch your sword. Instead, tend to the fields, help the villagers, and live without seeking battles." Daiki was skeptical, but he obeyed. For the next month, he put down his weapon. He worked alongside farmers, carried water, and repaired houses. At first, it felt strange. He wasn't proving himself to anyone. He wasn't fighting. But then, something unexpected happened. For the first time in his life, he felt free. He realized that true strength wasn't about proving anything. It was about mastering yourself. When the month ended, he returned to Kenji. "I understand now," Daiki said. "The greatest warriors are those who no longer need to fight." Kenji smiled. "Then you are truly strong." This story teaches us something profound. In today's world, everyone is trying to prove something. We see it on social media, in conversations, in the way people carry themselves. But the truth is, those who are truly great don't need to say it. Success doesn't need to be announced. True confidence doesn't need validation. Strength is quiet. If you are truly good at something, let your actions speak for you. Let your work show your worth. And most importantly, seek mastery, not attention. Because in the end, the loudest people are often the weakest. And the quietest ones? They are the ones worth listening to. Thank you for listening to this story. If it resonated with you, take a moment to reflect on how you approach success. Do you seek recognition? Or do you seek mastery? If you found this story meaningful, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more timeless wisdom like this, subscribe and stay on this journey with me. Until next time, stay humble, stay strong, and keep growing.